How can we as parents use the funnel method when making boundaries with our children? At what age should your child get a phone? How can you control when and where your child can drive? And what guidelines should be put in place? We will answer this and more on this episode of Parenting Matters.
We're now into our fifth teen, and so we tend to have an age that we feel like we will start opening that personal technology device. And for us, I don't even think they have iPods anymore, but it started with an iPod at 13 with the first one. And as he showed responsibility with that, then we let that time open up. And as he didn't show responsibility with that, we would take that away. And so we just kept kind of changing that. And as we moved down the kids, the idea that you had to be 13 and I get my first iPod became the popular vote in the family. But we've had a couple of kids who at 13 had not shown us that they were trustworthy with something that could open them up to a lot of things that we didn't want them to be exposed to. And so age didn't necessarily dictate that. It was a guideline, but for some kids, they had already earned that privilege and worked within that funnel enough that we passed that to them with boundaries. Some kids did not and still have not, and so their age has not dictated that you get this device, but rather how you've handled other things. And even something like the clothes thing that we talked about. If you can't handle us saying you're not going to wear that today, we're not going to give you a device that opens you up to a whole lot of things because you're not going to handle that well either. I think that's what you were talking about, how even something like that may even dictate how you handle technology.
As parents, we can't cave into the, well, everybody has one, or he needs one so we got to have a way to communicate. Well, you know what? They didn't even exist when I was my kid's age, and I had a way to communicate with my parents if I needed to, and I went through life just fine. And so, most days, I guess, but it's easy to cave to those pressures that we have, but we have to understand it's not just about that moment or about that device or that satisfaction or happiness with that kid. You got to look beyond it, I think, to be able to say no when you're mature enough to handle it. We'll relinquish and give you into that freedom, I guess.
Well, and this is where I also think, technology obviously is the big thing, and it is part of their culture, and it is something that it's a new thing for us because we didn't deal with that as kids, so we can't say to our kids, well, when I was your age, because it wasn't there. So we're kind of in this very gray area, and so as parents, you've got to decide together what makes sense for your family, and what does that funnel look like, and when are we going to say no you can't or yes you can. And then when you say that, if you give in, then the next time you say no, they're going to bring the pressure on tenfold, if that makes sense.
Well, I'd say the two biggest issues that come up with cars are, one, not being home or being somewhere on time when you were given a time to be home. And then secondly, not being where you said you were going to be. Those are the two things I think that we've seen where we are in life right now that have come up that have shown either a lack of respect for our rules or our boundaries or are being dishonest. Where sin has surfaced and therefore a consequence has to accompany that. And so, it's been a matter of just simply taking the keys away. We try to make sure that the punishment fits the crime and that we don't take their keys away for a year, but enough to let them know that we have taken back some of the freedom of being able to have the privilege of driving a vehicle and take yourself where you want to go, to now having to do it a different way. So,
And I think that's the key to the whole funnel, is any freedom you're given is a privilege. And you're given that privilege because you've earned that respect and that privilege because of the choices that you've been making. And so even if you have, we've even attached grades to that. So if you are not working and doing your job, which is, school, if you can't handle that and the responsibility that comes with that, then we're not ready to give you one more thing that could become a distraction for you. Having a car gives them a newfound freedom of being able, sometimes you can say no to something that a kid wants to do because you just can't get them there or can't get them a ride. But now that they have their own vehicle, they can go to a lot more. Their social life increases dramatically when they have the ability to drive themselves. But if they can't manage their schedule enough to keep up with their grades or even keep their room picked up, that all of that is tied together in who they are, then don't give them one more thing that's going to make those character issues more difficult.